Let's take a look at how to make a railings board. So if I look in the reference image, so this is how a railings board looks like. So I'm going to start by creating a cube. So I can create it from the shelf button and then scale it to the approximate size, so something like that. Now place it as close as you can. Now I'm going to switch to the front view, and from here, since it's a sport, that this is the part that connects the railing with the lower part of the wagon. So I'm going to put it as close as possible, like something like there. And now let's go into vertex mode and grab the lower area and start pulling this up. Right, so now right after this, I'm going to go back and grab the lower face and extrude it. Extrude, and we'll extrude a little bit something like this. Now to select the inside, it's hard to select the inside, so I'm going to go and click on this button called Isolate Select, and Isolate hides everything except for the selection temporary. And now I selected that face, and now I can unisolate by clicking on the same button. Now since that face is selected, I'm going to hit extrude and pull that one out up to all the way up to the wagon. Now how far? Going back into the front view and right about here. Okay, now going into vertex mode, and I can create that little taper part that I see in an image, in the reference image, something like that. Alright, so this is our side support. Now next thing is we wanted to bevel this one. Grab it and we're gonna click on bevel tool. Let's also take a look at one more thing. There's this little bolt here. If we make this along right now, so that whenever we duplicate this, that bolt would go along with it. I'm gonna start making bolt by creating a cylinder. Now by default, cylinder has 20 sides. If I set it to 6 sides, it's going to look like this, which is very close to the way this board should look like. So I'm going to grab that, and you can reduce the height or you can scale it. It's all up to you. I'll reduce the height since this menu is open. And then it's too huge, like so I'm going to pull it out. Two ways: you can scale it down, or we can still go under inputs and change the radius. Both ways are good as long as it's a small size. So I'm going to put it to 0.2, and now I'm just going to use the scale like something like that. Still too big, make it small, and hold V. V is for snapping. See, when I hold V, that little tiny button turns on and off. Right, so I'm going to hold V and then move this closer here. It's going to automatically snap to those points. What points? For that one, I'm going to need to turn on the wireframe on shaded. So all these vertices, that's what is the point. So I'm going to grab somewhere over here first, then rotate, and probably going to do 90 degrees. So I'm going to place it somewhere over here. It's way too big at the moment, so I'm going to make it small enough looking at the reference. So going right in here, and that should be good. Pulling a little bit out, something like that, and hit F on it. See, now when I hit F, and I almost don't see it. And why? Because camera is going too close to it, and camera range is probably not set to go that close. And how can you change that is, to change the camera, go under view and then say select camera. Whenever you hit select camera, it's going to select whatever camera you're looking at right now. Now I'm going to go into attribute editor while selecting camera is still selected, and then see near clip plane and far clip plane. This is the range for the camera, how far and how close camera can look. Maybe this is 0.1 is still not close enough, so I'm going to do 0.01. Now we're going to be able to see that board. Now let's bevel this. The way we're going to bevel is select this object and hit bevel, and now set the friction to 0.1. Now why we didn't select faces and edges? Because we wanted to bevel not just the outer edges but also these guys, because this shape should stay as it is. So I'm going to select it and hit 3, and to see if the bevel works. Yeah, bevel looked like it worked pretty good, and it's holding its shape. Now before we can duplicate this, let's take a look at one more thing in the reference image. Now if we look at really details, the same screw that's outside goes back inside and looks like something like this. And then also we have some of these screws showing up. So if we add all these at once before we duplicate this all around, it would save us a lot of time. How are we going to add this inside? So I'm going to take the same one and I'm going to duplicate on the inside. How? Control D to duplicate and then pull in red all the way in till you see that on the other side. To connect railing to post, we're going to make a nail. I'm going to start making nail using a cylinder. So, and then in the inputs there, instead of 20, I'll set this to something like 12. Since we only see the nail head, so that's the only part we need to make. And I'm going to snap and then let's rotate it 90 degrees. And now set the right size for the nail. And that's going to be hit R and scale it down. So I'm going to go to face, select this and hold shift double click. It's going to select the entire ring and hit bevel tool. Now that's all. So now if I hit 3 on it, now this is how it's going to look like. Alright, now this reads like a nail. It's just not at the right position yet. I'm going to go to the top view and then go back into my nail there, right in there. If it's harder to select, you can also select from the outliner from here and then move it exactly where the post is. Post right here. Okay, so that's good. Now going back into the perspective view. Now how many are there? Now there are 2 on each of this wooden plank. So I'm going to put 1 on each of those lines there. So probably 1 below this line and then duplicate Control D and pull that one somewhere over here. Now let's grab both of these. Click on first one, hold shift and click on second one. Now this is where you can select 2 of them, but if the same thing you're selecting from the outliner, then you select first one, hold control and select second one. That's the difference between selecting from the viewport and selecting from the outliner. Okay, so now while I have these 2 selected, Control D to duplicate and move them straight in the straight line right about here. Here we go. Now last thing before we can call it done is we're going to combine all those, because right now see how many objects are there. There's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6th one is the post, and then we have another screw up there. So now if you want to duplicate something like this, it's going to be, you have to duplicate all of them. So what are we going to do? We're going to combine all these into a single object. How? For that one, we'll select all the pieces. 1, 2. I'm holding shift while selecting it. 3, 4. Sometimes while you're doing this selection, you accidentally select something like this. Then you can shift select it again to deselect it. Okay, so make sure it's only right things are selected. If you're not sure what is selected, after selecting, hit this isolate button. It allows you to isolate and see, okay, everything that you want is there. And yeah, I think all the things are there. So I'm going to grab onto like this while in isolate mode and mesh combine. When you combine, it's going to combine all these things. So take a look at the outliner here. It's going to combine all these into a single object here. Now you get a lot of history here. See these plus signs and this white. We can easily get rid of that by deleting history. Add it, delete by type, history. See those clears up. And if you still see something like this, and we can get rid of it. Hit delete from the keyboard and that will remove it. Alright, now unisolate to see the entire model. Now this post is done. The next thing we're going to need to do is copy this over onto this side and on the other side. And how do we do that? And that's as easy as we did before. Control D and then move it to like somewhere over where, let's say somewhere over here. Now while I was moving, I was looking at the channel box how much I am moving this value. So let's say I wanted to move exactly 1.8 or maybe let's do 1.9, and then I can take this one again, Control D. This time I can move it this way, but instead of 1.9 it's going to be minus 1.9, and that is just to give them equal spacing. Now we are ready to duplicate these on the other side. We also wanted to copy these over here as well. So how do I bring this over here? So I'm going to take this one, Control D to duplicate and move it inside. Now rotate this one 90 degrees this way, and to be sure put that number minus 90 exactly, so it's exactly 90. and then pull this one out. Now this one you want to be careful how far, and I'm going to go to the top view for this and hit F, and for this one hit 4. So you can see now, see there's a little gap in there, so I want to make sure it fits perfectly. Perfect. Now I'm going to go back to the perspective. Now before I start duplicate this over here, I want to bring it to right to the dead center, which is right here at center line. So it's easier to go again back into the top view and hit F. So now put this right in the center. How do you know if it's in the center? Go really close to the center line, right? See how much I'm zooming in. Hold shift and middle mouse. I'm going to move to the left, so it lines up right here. Now I know it's in the right in the center. Go back to the perspective view. Now I wanted to freeze this transformation. What freeze transformation does, it's going to reset these values, translate, rotate, and scale is already 1. So how do you freeze? Modify, freeze transformation. See, all these values are back to default. Why we did this? So we know how much are we moving right and left. Now when I'm moving to the right here, I can put here value, let's say 0.8, and then I can duplicate this, Control D, and move it on to left side the same value, which would be negative 0.8. Okay, so now this is done. Now all we need to do next is mirror these onto the other side, and same way we wanted to mirror these front ones on the back side before we can call upper area to be done. Now to duplicate this onto other side, all we need to do is mirror. So I'm going to grab this. Now what axis is going this way? It's the x-axis. So I'm going to go into mesh mirror option box, and it's already set to x negative, which is exactly what I want. Hit apply, and you can see that mirrored over on the other side. Same for the second one, and same for the third one. Now what about these? They are not against x. We wanted to duplicate them. See, I'm rotating them this way. Now how do you know what to set up in x, y, and z in the mirror axis? So I'll say look in at this axis. Now we're looking at the z axis here. So z axis goes this way, right? So we wanted to duplicate from here to here. Now if this is z positive and this is going to be z negative, so I wanted to copy from z positive to negative. So I'm going to set it to z negative because that's where we want the final result to go. So I'm going to grab this one and while z negative and hit apply, and then second one, same thing, apply. And also remember, before doing any mirroring, it's a good idea to freeze the transformations. All right, now closing it, and everything is set already. Now grab and do everything here, and let's do all together modify, freeze transformation on everything, add it, and delete by type history. I can hit this button over here. It's called ambient occlusion. So if I click on this, I'll see some shadows. It just makes the visibility looks a little bit better. Now with that, we are done with our upper part of the wagon.